what you do within the agriculture community, and then where you're located. So we are the AgriSafe Network. We're a national agriculture health and safety nonprofit. Our goal is to protect the people who feed the world, and that's in every single aspect that you can think of. Um, we do have the AgriStress helpline. It is available now in 11 states. It's the 24/7 suicide crisis line. We also have resources that we give each client who does call, and you can also text as well. Now, we do like to go ahead and stay in touch with everybody who is on our meeting. So if you would like, you can go ahead and scan that QR code there, and it'll take you directly to our website. You can sign up for our newsletter, just learn how to stay in touch and everything that we offer throughout our year. So I feel like that might be a little bit small. There we go. So again, every month we have amazing speakers that we bring to you with different ideas. And Dr. Tara Haskins has been on quite a few times, keeping you updated on our AgriSafe network projects and everything that's going on. And we do have a speaker this month coming to us from Europe. So Dr. Shane Conway is going to talk to us about farmers' yards at the University of Galway. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and we will let Dr. Tara go ahead and give us the rundown of her project today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Good to see everybody here on the July 4th week. This is exciting. So I'm going to go ahead, Carrie, and share my screen. I've got several windows up, so my apologies. And Carrie, can you see this?
Yep, looks perfect.
Okay, great. So I will kind of swap out some panes in a little bit because I want to show you some results of the survey. But what I wanted to share with you today is AgriSafe's newest initiative in reaching healthcare professionals and public health professionals. We've been talking for a long time about the essential role that community health workers play in our communities. And, you know, sometimes when you think of community health workers, you think of them more in urban settings. And we know that they play a key role there too. But we started having some communications with individuals that were really interested in agricultural safety and health content. And this is about the Mental Health Innovation Exchange. And I think when I show you our survey results, you'll see how this is relatable. So, you know, AgriSafe, we work on things for a long time, and very luckily we found a funder, and this was the National Library of Medicine, and they had some money, and they were very interested in expanding professional development for community health workers. We received this grant in January, but we had a very compressed time to be completed. So we had to be completed with all of this work by April 1st. And if it hadn't been for the team at AgriSafe, everybody working every day under those really hard deadlines, we were able to pull this across the finish line. And we want this to live on. So I'm going to kind of give you an idea of what we did with this project. I'm blessed that I can travel around the United States and meet individuals that are working in mental health. And just to give you a short story, when I was in Alaska at the Rural Mental Health Conference, I met a really amazing group of, they call them behavioral health assistants. And this is a unique program in Alaska. They are trying to extend mental health care and mental health resources out into these very remote areas of Alaska. And they have a robust training program for these behavioral health assistants. And they really function as an extension of service. They provide service, they connect service, but they also are serving in a very culturally appropriate way. So it's really interesting to see the community health worker model adapted in certain cultures and other states. So AgriSafe's goals, we had a lot of goals. We got them done. We wanted to create a learning space for community health workers all in our current learning lab. We knew that it was critical to get community health worker continuing ed credits, and we worked with a consultant at a University of Texas in Tyler It was really important. We already had some curriculum, but we knew that that curriculum may need to be tweaked. It would need to be evaluated so that it could apply to the learning objectives that were needed for community health workers. We also wanted to create an incentive, and so AgriSafe has Nurse Scholar badges. We award badges for individuals that really invest a lot of time, and so for those community health workers, and if you saw the previous, actually I'll show you. This is the badge here that individuals will earn, and it is an electronic badge. But I'll tell you what we've done, sort of as a unique application of that badge for community health workers. And then we also wanted to find out from community health workers what was their interest in ag safety and health topics. They don't typically get this kind of content, and we needed to know, okay, what do we need to continue to develop? What do they want to know about? And we did both an English and a Spanish version on the survey. The Spanish version of the survey was a last minute change for us, but we had a contact in California, and we felt like understanding Promotoris needs could be different than other community health workers. We certainly wanted to create a network, and I'll show you the individuals that we connected with, and we wanted to train 150 community health workers by November 1st of this year. Even though the grant ended in April, National Library of Medicine was understanding in that our training needed to continue a little bit longer because we really just got the space set up for community health workers. We took a look. We now identify community health workers when they come into our live trainings, and we pulled all of their evaluations on our conversations on access to lethal means, which is CALM, which is a suicide prevention training, and also on our QPRs. We typically do one a month, every other month now, and they were very satisfied. We felt like, with the trainings, over 90% said they would recommend the trainings to other, and wonderful that 76 said they could make a change to their personal or professional interactions based on the CALM training, which was really encouraging for us. So just to give you an overview of what our outreach has been, we worked really hard in the beginning connecting with associations in Arkansas and in Missouri and in Texas. We were able to attend the Arkansas Community Health Worker Conference before the grant period ended in Hot Springs. As we're dedicated and we're committed to serving this population, so AgriSafe is going to be at 2 community health worker conferences in Texas. I'll be at those conferences. And I'll be doing, when I give them our curriculums that are available, they are really gravitating toward suicide prevention as well as opioid overdose. And just to give you an idea of what we sort of have in the pipe, we have our hearing loss and agriculture and zoonotic disease curriculums that are being finalized for community health worker CEs. And based on our partnerships, we decided to convert some of those to Spanish versions, so to meet the needs of the Promotoris that are primarily Spanish speaking. On your right-hand side, you see a list of the individuals that we've been working with. Some of these relationships with Elaine Johannes out of Kansas Extension started well over almost a year and a half ago when these conversations started. I had the pleasure of meeting and talking with Heather Clark at the Rural Health Mental Health conference in Alaska. Going to be connecting with her on some future initiatives and maybe doing some evaluation, statistical analysis of our community health worker trainings. Heather is the one that is in charge of the Federal Office of Rural Policy research project looking at community health worker roles in multiple states across the United States. Kim Bush is our CE provider. Grateful to have that relationship. She's been doing a lot of work. And then as a result of some connections, we were able to connect with Adrienne Saxton out of Cabrillo College in California. And we're really excited because she has extended the use of some photos that are community promotoras that are actually out working in the fields with farm workers. And so once we get all of that, those details finalized, you'll start seeing some of those photos on our website. I did want to share the results of the survey that we had. I'm going to stay on track here because I want to make sure that we hear a lot from our other speaker. I apologize. This is this survey results. It's in a PDF. Can you still see this, Carrie? Can you still see this? Yes, good. Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. So we did really pretty much a social media push to get the survey completed. It was very successful. And we also had survey completions at the conference in Arkansas. This just kind of gives you an overview of who we were able to reach. Some CHWs are certified in the state of Texas. There are a lot of certified CHWs. It's not necessarily required in every state. And so we wanted just to kind of get an overview picture. Many of the individuals had been CHWs for 1 to 5 years or greater. And then we also asked them, like, how would they identify? So a CHW is an individual that comes out of a training program ready to meet the needs of a community. A CHWI is an instructor of CHWs, and they have different professional development needs. And so we're working really closely with Kim Bush to see if some of our trainings can be modified to meet their professional development needs. We did have quite a few that identified as promotorists. To get an idea of their learning style, they kind of were all over, but they like virtual live and they like in-person. So that kind of gives us a good idea of the best way to reach individuals. AgriSafe does do on-demand learning, and we are going to have some in our learning lab for on-demand. So maybe the interest of that will grow. This is really critical. What I wanted to share, we wanted to know what topics were you interested in, and if you look at the top 3, mental health, suicide prevention, and alcohol and substance use disorders showed some of the greatest interest from top to bottom. Then what we wanted to do is get an idea of the promotora. So we pulled out those 19 individuals that completed the Spanish survey, and this is a breakdown of those survey results. Many of them have been practicing as a community health worker for 1 to greater than 5 years. All of these individuals, thankfully, through our relationship with Adrian Saxton, we were able to get this survey over. All of the results came from California. And if we look at, many of them wanted in person. And so know that that's going to be a challenge for us because we need an individual that's going to be able to deliver a training in Spanish. So we're working on maybe how we can make that happen. It might have to be with virtual recordings until we can get individuals that can do those trainings, in person on site. And again, what were their interests? Mental health, suicide prevention, and alcohol and substance use. So I think that this sort of shows the needs of community health workers, where they see the greatest need is. We're really excited to be able to share that with them. And I do want to share with our audience just our platform, Carrie. I want to encourage you, if you have connections with community health workers, if you're over a program, these trainings are going to be available at no cost, and they get continuing ed credits as well. We're going to work to try to find grant funding to keep this available at no cost. If you know of any grants that are available for professional development that you think AgriSafe could apply for, please push those our way. So I'm showing you our AgriSafe web page. And if you go to Learning Opportunities, the first change we made when you went to continuing ed is we have now a block that's completely for community health workers and promotorists. So this link will take them to their landing page that has been designed for them. You see the badge here on the left, and we have a little bit of information about why we are dedicated to this professional group. And then we also will list on here any upcoming live events. All of our suicide prevention trainings are live events So they're not on demand because we need to be able to provide emotional support for individuals. But those opportunities will be here to be easy for them to register. And then if you go into our learning lab, I'll just give you a snapshot of what we already have in here and the content here as listed. So we have community health worker CEs for QPR, for CALM training. Our farm response training is going to have CEs. They won't be Texas DHHS, which in some community health workers in Texas need a certain proportion of their professional development to be those DHHS certified CEs. And then we've got HPV vaccination as well as naloxone training. So these are already there. The continuing ed information is listed here. Community health workers have to have details of which portion of their skill sets do these community health worker trainings meet. And so they are all listed there. And then I do want to say that the things we have in place, those will show up in that learning lab, the curriculum that's in review, as soon as they are ready. So our site is live, and I welcome any questions about this initiative. And also, please, I welcome any partnerships if anyone wants to connect with me about how we get this information to community health worker groups outside the connections and partnerships that we have already established. Thank you, Carrie.
Awesome. Thanks, Tara. We do have a question from Bob in the chat, and I don't understand this, but you might understand this. He says, what is your N, so the letter N, with your percentages of change evaluation results? Does that make sense?
Oh, he's talking about the number.
Oh, so, okay.
Yeah. What is my N? Thank you. We've got a researcher here on. I love that. Always. I'm not sharing. Am I sharing still, Carrie?
No.
Okay. Okay. So for the initial, and I'm gonna pull it up so that I can reference this appropriately. The N on the English survey results was 189. Now, we had 232 people complete the survey, but really what we wanted was the community health worker. So 189 identified themselves as a community health worker, and that was the data that we pulled. When we delivered this survey, if an individual said, I am not a community health worker, they were actually sent to the end of the survey because we did not want that data to be mixed in with the community health worker responses. And we got responses.
I
We got
saw the
responses.
189. I
Uh-huh.
saw your 189 on the CHWs. I did not see the N on the CALM evaluation results or
Oh,
those two workshops. That's where the N I didn't find.
okay. I
That's what I'm asking
apologize.
about.
Yes. Well, thank you. Well, I tell you what, I'll have to get that information for you. I pulled it really quickly. I'll have to get that from our learning lab where we got those results. I will say that because of this initiative, we just started recently putting "Are you a CHW" when an individual registers for a course. So it's very likely that we've had CHWs, but we really did not have them identified. So that was an aha moment for us that we needed to be a little bit more directive in making sure we're identifying community health workers. But thank you, Bob. That was your question, Bob? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Bob. I see you on the WORSAT meetings, don't I?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, great. I'll find that information out and I'll send it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Tara Morgan has a question. She said, what percentage of the community health workers surveyed were from agriculture families? And then she states the training needs might change with those who are hearing those needs directly from their own community.
Great question. And who asked that?
That's Morgan Eldridge.
Morgan. Okay. Thank you, Morgan. We did not ask the question, do you live or are you from an agricultural community? And we realized that was that was a miss for us, an opportunity to identify them. We do know that a large number, came from Arkansas, California. The 19 in California are working directly because those are the promontories. We've actually seen photos of those individuals. A lot out of New Mexico. So while we don't know where they're located at in cities, we just know their state location. So that would have been a great question to ask. Now,
Note for next time.
yes, and if an individual takes farm response, that is one of the questions on registration. Do you live and or work or are from an agricultural community? Because but that's within the farm response data.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan.
Yeah. You guys can go ahead and unmute if you want to ask her a question directly, or continue, go ahead and put them in the chat. So if you have any more questions for Dr. Haskins, go ahead and unmute if you would, and she can answer directly.
Okay.
And then also remember that we'll get you the recording also, if you wanted something from her slides.
I'm going to grab my charger.
Okay. All right. We'll go ahead. When Tara gets back, she'll go ahead and put her information in the chat if you'd like to contact her. But we'll also send that out in an email. And we are going to move right along to Dr. Conway, and he's going to share with us farmers' yards. And we thought that this would resonate really good with you guys, and maybe you guys can take a few ideas from his project.
Okay, just checking you can all see this.
Yep, there you go. Now you're in presenters mode. Looks good.
Okay, perfect. First and foremost, thanks so much for the opportunity to share my work with you all. It's great to see such a great attendance, and even looking through the names on the list, I recognize some, and also plenty of Irish surnames there that I can see. So yeah, this is work I've been doing for the past 12 years now, including my PhD that I completed in 2017. So I'm looking forward to sharing it with you all. I do collaborate quite a lot with various extension advisory offices in the universities in the US, South Dakota State University, University of Wisconsin-Madison, Iowa State, through the International Farm Transition Network that some of you may have heard about, essentially equipping facilitators that deal with farm families around the topic of succession and the transfer of land. So this is also very applicable to this topic because it does cause a lot of stress and turmoil in families. So yeah, I can briefly mention that, but for now, I want to speak predominantly about this Farmers Yards social initiative for the farming community that I initially developed through my research, and then subsequently it's been rolled out in the state of Pennsylvania by Pennsylvania Farm Link. And I just want to acknowledge their contribution to this work. So yeah, looking forward to presenting to you all. And I am based in the University of Galway, which is on the very west of Ireland and the periphery of Europe. The next stop is literally the US. So that's where I'm located. And our university is about 25,000, whereas the town itself is 80. So it's a real university town. And I'm originally from a rural community, a farming community. And I suppose when I'm setting the scene, I just wanted to just point that out, because I suppose for me this is not just work, it's a passion. And this was only taken last week. We won the All-Ireland Championship with our ram, our Charlie ram. They originated in France. But I suppose I wanted to just put this picture up here to show where I'm positioned in this world, because a lot of cases when we're dealing with farmers and talking about mental health and I suppose sense of purpose and place and identity in later life, trust is a big thing. So I just wanted to just position myself within this. So I'm going to present about my work, but at the end of the day, I'm embedded in this community as well, the farming community, and this is all I've ever known, I guess, from a young age. So I'm going to start off with the topic of farm transfer, intergenerational farm transfer, because this is where the research originated in 2013. And where we're at now is, it's moved into the mental health and well-being. But from here, and it's still very applicable today, that the older generation's reluctance to step aside and to retire to facilitate the younger generation is globally recognized. And of course, in some cases, the younger generation aren't interested, but for those who are, there is a roadblock that the older generation won't step aside. And some of the research that I was reading in the early, 90s and from the research quite a while ago, they were referring to it, say, as the Prince Charles syndrome. So in the royal family, that his mother for until she was in her 80s or 90s, and he was in his 60s, Prince Charles, and now he's King Charles. But they were trying to paint that picture that are farmers willing to wait so long now to take control? So this is also an issue. So there's a stifling of growth and development of the sector. Again, I'm just citing the literature that was out there, and a greying of the farming population. A third of Irish farmers are over their traditional retirement age of 65. Same across the European Union. So there are concerns, but the dynamics in this family issue, who's in control, etc., may distort those figures somewhat. So it's a very complex issue. And it is in the US as well, because I deal week to week with my colleagues in the US as well. So it's, there's a lot of cross continents and cultures, but a lot of similarities. So in Ireland, for example, if ever I had to justify why I started my PhD back in 2013, I suppose this was the document that really, I suppose it's absolutely ridiculous, to be honest, that a food producing nation like Ireland, proud of I think, our butter, for example, and our whiskey is sold all over the world. We're a food producing nation, you know, grass-based system all year round. And yet our Irish government produced a document like this to basically push out the older generation, asking farmers who have farmed all their life and produce food to cease agricultural activity upon retirement forever, and continued participation is not permitted, and be between the 55th and 66th birthday. So that's just a few lines within this document. And actually, my research caused such disruption in a policy setting in Ireland, my findings, that they actually have removed this document. It's actually, you can't find it anymore, but I have it on file if any of you want to see it. But it just kind of showcases how disconnected our government, our policymakers were from the realities on the ground. So I suppose from a farming background, I saw this and I wanted to prove that it wasn't appropriate, because essentially farmers were being asked to revise who they are upon retirement. It was oblivious to the mindset of many older farmers. So there was an urgent need to look beyond financial enticements alone. This isn't just about a nice retirement scheme and sail off into the sunset to sunny Spain and set up a nice holiday home or whatever. This is much deeper, and when it comes to the farming occupation, it's a way of life for many, and it was very important to look beyond just the economics. So, back in 2013, when this started, I challenged the one-dimensional approach, and my research over the past 12 years has delved deeper into the mindset and mannerisms of the older generation to identify the psychodynamic, but also importantly, the sociodynamic issues affecting farm succession and retirement in later life. And I will give an overview of that through the findings. Like, we're dealing with across Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, a study. So there was 888 farmers involved in this study, from a representative sample of 44,000 clients, because Teagasc, which are our agricultural advisory body, food and development advisory body, they kindly inserted certain questions related to my research into their national farm survey. So this is I suppose, a bulletproof piece of research when it comes to data. And from that, of course, I wasn't just going to look at the facts and the figures. I wanted to delve deeper into it. So the interviews were carried out subsequently. And this is where the real rich data came from, and getting the farmer's voice out there to really hit home the limitations of policy in the past, and to inform future policy more appropriate. So, this is sort of the academic journey then. I had the data, the PhD was coming to the end, and then I started to publish. So these are international peer-reviewed journals across the world, peer-reviewed in the Journal of Rural Studies, which is a very high-impact journal, to Socialis Ruralis, another high-impact. So yeah, it kind of tells the story step by step. And, as the research went on, I was able to reference myself in some cases just to build a case. And I suppose they all just looked at this human dynamics affecting farm succession and retirement. And the human side is the mental health and well-being. And it subsequently really pointed that this needed to be looked at in greater depth. If I had to synopsize all those papers, the human side has been overlooked. There's a disconnect between farm transfer measures and the mindset of the target population. Farming is much more than just an economic activity. It's also a way of life for many. And to be honest, if it was just about the financial aspects, there would be few doing it, because there is this real tough mentality to keep going, even when the weather is against them, the price volatility, but they keep going because there's a deeply ingrained passion and love of the land. Importantly, for this research, a real cultural expectation within the farming community that farmers don't retire. And those who die with their boots on essentially were revered and looked favorably upon by their neighbors. And on the flip side, those who do retire are almost seen to be having some sort of a defeatist attitude, or to be taking it easy, and they're just not seen in the same light as those who just keep going. So that causes a lot of issues when you're talking about transfer of land, because farmers don't want to be seen to be taking it easy, because this badge of honor is almost attached to being a hard worker. So they wish to remain active and productive. So, I was often complimented for looking at the soft issues, but in a way, this is really the hard issues, because no financial enticements will encourage this. The social and emotional factors are the most difficult to deal with and address. The loss of identity, status, and control. So these are the hard issues. And this language of farming needs to be understood by policy in particular, because ultimately the older generation decide whether this happens or not. They hold the gold, and gold in farming is the land. So if they're not willing to do so, it ain't happening. So we need to address the disconnect between policy and realities on the ground to create, well-informed policy that understands this language of farming. None of us can avoid aging. And as this piece of research has identified, the majority of older farmers opt to maintain normal day-to-day activity and behavior instead of retiring in later life. That's what they want to do. That's their choice. And I think there's certain issues around that, but if that's what maintains, say, in the purpose for the context of this presentation, their well-being and their mental health is attached to being active and productive, we need to create sensitive measures that allow that, but also to facilitate the necessary transfer to the next generation. So, I was able to publish this academically, but a big push of mine throughout my research has been always getting it down through the different channels. So this, for example, published a paper, but then got it into a research magazine in the agri sector, a policy brief, the national media, and then the local media. Very importantly, because again, going back to that trust, farmers will trust their local sources much more than, say, even national media. So this was just something that I suppose I learned as I went along, how to get these messages across, because I hate the silo mentality of a lot of academics, and that, okay, we've published it, box ticked, let's move on. But a lot of that research is lost. Like, you interview these farmers, some of these interviews were quite heavy going, some of them got quite emotional, talking about the future. So I just wanted to make sure that the research made a bit of a difference to their lives and to their peers' lives moving forward. And this is where it all came to the fore. And I think, like it or whatever, like it or hate it, the European Union do regulate, let's just put it that way, the direction that we have to take with our Irish policy. So if the European Union outline a certain direction, nationally we have to adapt it to our needs. I'll just word that diplomatically. But I suppose when I saw this published, it was a real encouraging, and I knew I could take this next step. So the Commission, based on my research, criticised Ireland's previous approach and called for an increased focus on mechanisms that help older farmers enhance their quality of life by exploring possibilities under social policy. And I was like, bingo, this is what I've been researching since 2013, and now we can move it forward. So this is when we're going to transition into the next step, which is our farmers' yards. So from that, I had previously published this in 2018, generally speaking about a social initiative organization for older generation of the farming community, for them to come together and to share their stories about, the challenges of later life and their ideas about succession, etc., that because they're not alone. So it's vital that there's a social outlet for older farmers to remain actively involved in the farming community. Because even if they do step aside, farming is a way of life, not just an occupation. And as I have shown, retirement is perceived to put this legitimate connection at risk. So even if those who do retire, the connection in the farming community is at risk. So a social outlet, specifically for their needs, is important. So I wanted to bring it to life, and of course, the only way to bring it to life is to pilot it on the ground. So it was piloted at a livestock mart, which is an auction house, or I'm not sure what it's referred to in the US. I think it's an auction house, where buying and selling cattle or sheep or pigs demonstrate how this social initiative can bring about social inclusion and in turn, well-being amongst older farmers. I think to model this upon like what the European Union and, trying to align it with the direction of policy and broader funding, I guess, it's important to, speak about this multi-actor approach to combine the scientific, technical, and community knowledge to create this initiative. It wasn't just all research based. Like I went out there and I asked older farmers, how can it work? I asked our Irish Farmers Association, the Older Persons Council of the region, to give me feedback about how can we set this up. So again, there was no tunnel vision here. We built trust and we moved it forward collectively. I piloted it in these marts because they're not just venues of transaction within the farming community, but key social outlets, because it gives them a platform to come together in an informal, familiar, and friendly setting. So rather than pitching this as a mental health initiative, which can be a bit intimidating for some farmers, it was pitched as a social initiative. And I will show you in a moment how we address the mental health and well-being from that. This was a map created around the time of COVID, just showing the maps that were, or excuse me, the marts across the islands that were open and shut. I just wanted to put it up just to show you how they're located everywhere. So in a way, these are all social hubs, if you look at it like that. So it's just to show that this has an island-wide potential and it also has a global potential. It's in the UK, they've subsequently published research about it's more than just a mart. Farmers coming together. In Australia, social hotspots of the outback. It's just to paint that picture that this is very relevant globally. So it was pitched as this, the invitation went out in the local area. Again, talking about coming together over a cup of complimentary tea or coffee, really just setting this up as something social, a nice gathering. And it took place over 6 weeks. If, this was the way it was pitched to the farming community. Again, in the canteen, we actually live streamed the march that was taking place. So we held it on the same evening as the cattle and sheep were being sold and bought. We didn't want to disrupt their schedules, but we wanted to create this as an added extra where they could just pop in. So even if and ironically, because so many come just to have a look and to meet people, a lot of them just sat here all evening and watched the live stream and just got together and spoke with each other. This was the launch, quite a, we had some merchandise, again, just to create a nice atmosphere, a fun atmosphere. Some of the participants, we even had, of course, we had plenty of local politicians who showed up because they saw that this was making an impact. And yeah, our Irish Farmers Association, a big representative body. Yeah, so men and women. It's not just for older farmers that are men, it's gender inclusive, and that was also very important. So this is probably an interesting aspect, and it goes back to the presentation at the start about, issues that are affecting the farming community. And I suppose the way this is set up, it can deal with a lot because you're creating a trusted space, and then you can have social well-being and education activities. So over the course of the 6 weeks, the first evening I wanted to ease them in. So it was about artificial insemination of bull selection. So lots of them turned out for that because they wanted to see what was happening. But then we transitioned into looking after your health and well-being. But then the following week was about online bidding on platforms, even Facebook, just giving them easing them into these things. And then we addressed the free health check, and then farm partnerships and succession. And then we went back to improving your health and safety on the farm. So a really balanced agenda, and it worked. It worked the way we had set up. So this is the first evening. A guy came from the Irish Cattle Breeders Federation. Again, the topic wasn't about mental health and well-being, but we brought all these farmers together and they all shared stories. So it was about easing them into this. The following evening, mental health and well-being. Um, the next evening about using digital platforms. We had a speaker in to really sit amongst them. And again, this is a very rural community in the west of Ireland. A lot of these farmers are quite isolated. So it was an nice added activity to their usual schedules. The free health check from our Heart and Stroke charity. Quite funny to observe this. A lot of their peers, they didn't want their peers to see them getting the health check, so they used to come in and look to see did they know anyone there, and then they come in. But actually, we had to refer about three or four on to the hospital from their high cholesterol, etc. So maybe we even saved a life over those 6 weeks. I'm not sure, but it was important. It just showcased the importance of this. And then to address this topic, because this does bring a lot of mental health issues in farming communities amongst both generations, we wanted to speak about discussions around succession and farm partnerships. So again, this was quite nice because we had a mix of the old and the young here in this particular session. And I have spoken about this as far wide as in Uruguay in the past. So this is a topic that's very universal. And then the final session was about farm safety, health and safety. Again, we had like the head of farm safety and the Health and Safety Authority of Ireland. He came, Pat Griffin, and he just sat amongst the farmers. There was no airs or graces. He just spoke about them on a very, humble level and talked about health and safety training as an activity, not a task, to try and just paint that picture that it's something that they can do together, even some sort of workshops. And then because I'm involved in pedigree livestock myself, I just thought again to add a kind of a fun and competitive aspect to this whole initiative that farmers had a weekly stock judging competition. Again, very simple. Whilst on the outset you mightn't think it's related to the, say, mental health, but again, you're bringing them together. You're creating this healthy competition and a degree of fun, and that was the winner there. So the lessons learned from the pilot were subsequently published in the Journal of Agromedicine in July 2024. So actually a year ago at this stage. So that was the next stage. So it is there. You're free to look at it, and I can send on a copy, of course, just to show the first steps of this. And making impact from an Irish setting, again, it hit the national airways in the radio, it hit the national media, and also the local media, which I have spoken about already. But the real impact was this. This is the farming community that came along, and a lot of them are bachelor farmers living on their own, and this was enhancing their mental health. Whilst we didn't frame it that way, we didn't want to intimidate them in the sense of that we didn't want to assume that they were struggling in any way, but the research and the subsequent research has backed up that a lot of them are. So this is an avenue that we can get access to the harder to reach. And I like to frame it as the harder to reach because I did present this to the Irish Farmers Association before it started. And I just said that actually, farmers' yards, of course, it's for you, but it's not even going to benefit you the most. I said it's Johnny or Mary that go to the mart and stand in the background and don't get involved in these Irish Farm Association and all these organizations, that this is the initiative that can target them. It's just the way it's set up. It's set up just as a social. So I suppose, again, when you're trying to I won't say sell this to policy, but really to really point out the importance of it. Like the WHO have a concept called the age-friendly environments. It basically it's one in which policy, services, and settings enable people to age actively. But until I have published this research, it was never applied in the farming context. If you think about it, they're trying to encourage people to age actively because it enhances their mental health and well-being. But in farming, it's almost the complete opposite. So whilst we want the sector to progress, we do also need to not to forget about these older farmers. And hopefully farmers' yards can kind of direct us in that way. You know, the WHO, the OECD, the United Nations, they're all talking about social group membership in later life being important. But in farming, there's few and far between, specifically for their needs. So it's just to point out that this is a globally relevant, and actually outside of a farming context, they're calling for these sort of groups. But I think we are a little bit behind in that sense. So hopefully this can catch up. So, you know, the peer-to-peer collegiality brought about by this is extremely beneficial for older farmers, particularly those who live alone or those who do not have a successor to take over. It helps for farmers prevent them being isolated and excluded in later life. And you know, this is the International Farm Transition Network that I'm vice chair of for the past 4 years now, representatives from across the US. And I suppose because of my connections in the US, I suppose they have heard about this over the past while and they were able to relate to it. And subsequently, Darlene Livingston, who is executive director of Pennsylvania Farm Link, decided to, you know, adopt it in a Pennsylvania context, to utilize the model, the concept, and to see how it can be applied there. So this is the launch, and it took place at the 109th Pennsylvania Farm Show. So it brought together these farmers, some of them in their 70s and 80s, and I suppose the focus Darlene has is on this farm succession and addressing that aspect of it, and you know, creating harmony in farm families through this. So the farmers' yards is a way of bringing them together, and then hopefully, so, and it was funded through the USDA, National Institute of Food and Agriculture. So you know, it's just to show that it's applicable in a US context as well. And they will be holding gatherings across the state in 2025. You know, similarly as we did in Ireland, free coffee, breakfast, connect with local farmers, group discussions. You know, this is the way it's pitched in that context. And finally, the last slide, and I think I've between my students that I teach, and I've presented everywhere, but there's just I came across this very early in my research, and it's an incredible piece of film. It's about 15 minutes long. I don't know, did any of you ever watch The Sons of Anarchy? But that actor there was in that show, and it's just about a farmer who's looking for purpose in his life. His children have moved away, and it's, you know, this to let go or remain rooted. And actually, it would it's quite emotional actually, because I suppose even from my research, and it basically paints a picture of many farmers that are out there, and this is particularly from a US context. So I would recommend you check this out, and I know it will resonate with you all for sure because we're all working in this space. So I can't take credit for it. I wasn't starring in it or whatever, but it's just as a final slide. I just wanted to paint that just promote it, I guess. I've nothing to gain from it, but just I think it's a lovely piece of film. So thank you for your attention. As we say in Gaelic, Goramagiv Goléir in my native language. And you know, there's a few links there. I can send out the PDF afterwards, and you can access papers and LinkedIn or whatever. So
Yeah,
so
Dr.
yeah,
Conway, that would be
that's
great. If you could send those links to me, I'll make sure that we pass them on with our meeting recording. So I had this analogy run through my head when you were talking about the farmers' yards. You were like the parent who has snuck vegetables into their kid's meal and it still tastes yummy and they're getting the benefits of the vegetables, but they don't actually know you're doing the same thing with talking to these farmers. You're presenting it in a way that is non-threatening and they don't even realize how much they're
mm,
absorbing in mental
mm.
health, but they're just enjoying themselves.
Yeah, I think that's the number one benefit. And I actually find so Ireland are kind of jumping on the bandwagon now. And I hate to say that in the sense of mental health is some sort of but there's a lot of funding out there now. And they're all trying to discover how can we help the farmers. But yet there's a model in place there that's working and has been published internationally and it's up and running. But unfortunately, everyone wants a piece of this. And it's quite frustrating really that, you know, we have proven that if you pitch it in such a way you can inform the older generation or the farming community in general about mental health challenges and initiatives and how to address it, but actually not um, intimidating them or scaring them off. Like the way I will speak about it is those who do want to address their mental health will take the steps to do so, but those who are, you know, that suffer in silence, how do we access them? And it's that's the question we need to ask. And I think research needs to ask that question as well. And they need to really think about their recommendations here. You know, we have loads of basically pop-up mental health workshops now, but are we targeting the harder to reach? So that's something that I really think even if in the US you don't call it farmers yards, but if there's lessons to be learned about how we set it up and how it can work, I would like to just to really hit that home that that's a way to do so. It's an appropriate way to do so.
We have a few comments in the chat. So I always like it when Bob's on board because he always has stuff to add. So Bob is actually from Colorado State University and he helps a lot. I know him through the AgriAbility program, but he says you're on the right track with the human dimension of intergenerational transfer. And you know, we've been hearing that come to the forefront quite a lot in the last couple of years. Um, uh, B. Tyrell, I think is how I say it. Tricky agenda, but I love it. Alan says something that is coming to mind to help retired and retiring farmers is a program called Feel Useful, and it's from France.
Mm.
Do you know about that?
No, but I will check that out. Thanks for
That
sharing this. Yeah.
that wasn't the name of the program. It was just a way to help them feel
Oh,
useful.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I thought that's what it was actually called. Yeah, so he said it's intended to provide farmers with support if they're having struggles. You know, of course, we know, you know, farmers can't take a vacation, and if they have a health
Mm.
issue, the farm still needs to be tended to. So I think we've talked about that a lot. Um, you know, who says so the retired farmers could help with other farmers in need and kind of be like farm consultants. I think that would be great for our younger generation, you know, because not everybody grows up in farming or agriculture anymore and they want to learn, but who do they go to learn from, you know?
Yeah,
The
exactly. And so, excuse me, sorry. Go ahead there. Sorry.
Yeah, the and I'm not smart enough to be able to remember the name of the presenter of the meeting that I was in a month and a half ago, but the program in France is intended to have sort of a dual role. One is to support farmers who need a break, whether it's because of a mental stress related issue or a physical medical issue. They need somebody to help for a week or 2 weeks or six weeks or whatever,
Mm.
and then using some of that expertise for consulting younger farmers who are trying to go into new avenues or have just started farming but don't have a family history of farming, and that that generational knowledge base. And what you're saying, I kind of flip that script, that using these farmers that are retiring, and a retiring farmer is someone who has worked 7 days a week for their entire life, and without something to do, they wither. So
Mhm.
giving them a way to be useful, to use their knowledge, to use their skills, and maybe it's a couple of old boys from down the road that are helping Sean when he's got a broken leg or something like that.
Yeah.
But you
No,
could set up sort of a cadre to do that.
yeah, I completely agree, Alan. And, in some of my research, I spoke about the limitations around calling it early retirement scheme. It should be called farm progression scheme, because the older generation are the ones who can inform the younger generation. And, I suppose if you look at it from the perspective of, you could have a young trained farmer coming out of agricultural college, and they've been learning the way it's done in the particular area, but they go home and they try to apply what they learned in the soil at home, and it doesn't work. And the older generation immediately goes, well, at this time of the year, this field, they'll know their land better than anyone else. So the older generation are essential. And I suppose with the farmers' yards potentially, if bringing them together, we could connect up the older and younger generation as well. We could have intergenerational workshops, but I suppose the approach that we took in the 6 weeks was what I showcased. But there's a lot of potential to do, as you said, Alan. Yeah, and the French example, that's something I'm going to check out as well, because a lot of farmers don't take holidays. So if there was an option to have a model to do so, bring it on.
It's really, really hard to find somebody that's dumb enough to come 10 750 animals for a week so you can take a vacation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Takes
We
a
do have a
special
few
kind
more
of
comments.
masochist.
Oh, I'm sorry. Um, we do have a few more comments. So Morgan resonated with this because she said they have the same issues with the fishermen retiring in the commercial fishing industries. It says, great work. Alan again says, I thought I kind of snickered at this because I understand. He said, thinking of my grandfather's slow transition into retirement. He's one of those, grandkids that are far from the home, so he's not there to help. But we did get up the Vimeo, the Zoom link, or Loom, I'm sorry, link is in the chat, but we'll go ahead and send that with our email as well. They said, thank you for the amazing information. Ellen, and I think you've said this on one of our other Zooms before to kind of remind us, encourage everybody to look at their local fire departments as partners in the community. He said, so they already meet weekly to train, and yes, they are farmers and tradesmen. All of ours are volunteers and, in our community. So. And if anybody would like to unmute, we have a couple minutes left, as that's the last one in the chat, but you can feel free to unmute and ask either Dr. Conway or Dr. Haskins anything that you would like.
Jane, I like your research very much. You're on the right track. And in Dr. Tony Zimmerman's and my work in the 90s with farmers and ranchers in Colorado, we learned that labor, management, and land are the three components of successful estate transfer. And at least in our observation of making on-site visits, we found that those elder farmers who made and ranchers who made the transfer of part of the labor and part of the management and part of the land when the next generation was in high school and college, and gradually increase that over the time when they're in the 30s and 40s and 60s and 70s. Then you don't wind up with Queen Elizabeth and King Charles problem with regard to waiting till they've totally settled in a city and don't have time to go farm anymore. But you start them when they're in high school and college. Those were more successful at interstate transfer than were those who waited like Queen Elizabeth did.
Yeah, no, thanks, Bob. And it's nice to virtually meet you because I've come across your name so many times. So it's a pleasure
Nice
to
to,
cross paths. And
yes,
yeah, most certainly. And I think in Ireland, an approach we're taking now are farm partnerships. So setting up official partnerships between the older and younger generation, where to create that dynamic that, Alan was encouraging, the sharing of knowledge. It's the approach we're taking now. We're not looking at pushing out the older generation, but it's thankfully in the past few years it's more of a partnership approach. And I think it relates to what you said, maybe not in high school now in that age category, but certainly in the early 20s. And yeah, because that Prince Charles syndrome it was published, I think, in 1996. And I used to present that up until the Queen Elizabeth died. Like, of course, I'm Irish. I can say this no problem. I've no love for the Queen or whatever. But I was presenting that as an example because I was presenting that in 2023 and it was published in 96. And poor Prince Charles was still in the same situation as he was in 96 as he was in 2023. So even when I was presenting to my students, a lot of them aren't from a farming background, but I just said, think about his situation and think about a farmer. And I just said, think about our generation now. Are we willing to be basically being told what to do or not having access to the checkbook, as a lot of farmers were speaking about in our 50s. So it's just a way to look at it. And it's good to hear that this whole new approach towards succession is sharing responsibility. So hopefully that'll give more encouragement to the younger generation to step forward.
Dr. Conway, we have one more question before we end, and I don't know if we can just go to FarmLink in Pennsylvania's, if they have a web address, but they would like to know, who do you contact about that program?
Yeah, it's Darlene Livingston, but yeah, I'd have to ask her permission before I share her details, but that's who it is. It's Pennsylvania Farm Link, and it's Darlene Livingston. She's the executive director.
Okay.
But yeah, I can't put her email into this now because I need to ask her permission.
Right, sure. Yeah, we can ask that as well. So, all right, we're just about 2 minutes over the hour, and I think we had a great response today. I'm super excited to see how many people showed up, even though it's this close to the 4th of July. We were a little bit worried about that, but man, you guys came in hard and greeted our two speakers today. So sometime, hopefully within the next 24 hours, I'm not sure with the holiday going on, we'll go ahead and get you the email out that has the link to this video so you can share it with any colleagues, or I had a couple people say they had to leave early. You can watch it, and then we'll have both speakers contact information for you to go ahead and collaborate with later. So Dr. Haskins and Dr. Conway, we really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and projects with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity. Really delighted to speak to you all. Thank you.
We enjoyed it. Thank
And
you.
enjoy the celebrations on the 4th.
Yes, thank you. Everybody, yes, enjoy your 4th, and then we'll see you in August.